Okay, cool. So, welcome back. Here's another mallet lesson. I'm going to have you stand on that side. And here, let me just double check and make sure you're in. If you stand right there, let me make sure. Okay, yeah, that looks good. We can see your hands really nicely. So, last time we talked about scales. I think we talked about the circle of fourths and fifths. And, okay, good. Let's go ahead and just remind me what a scale is. What are the intervals that create a major scale?
Okay, so the intervals that create a major scale are major second.
A whole step.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, a whole step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, a whole step, and a half step.
Okay, good. And we can do that from any starting pitch.
Yep.
And if we do that, we end up with a major scale. Great. And then we noticed a pattern last time, I think, where we played a C scale. And then we moved up a fourth and created another major scale using whole step, half step. And then kept going in that cycle. That every single time we added one more flat. Mm-hmm. So as we moved up the keyboard in fourths, we're adding flats. And then I think maybe we talked about that if we do the same thing except move up the keyboard by a fifth, we end up adding sharps as we go through. And with the sharps, the note that's changed is always the leading tone into that new tonic. Okay, great. So let's go ahead. Did we talk about green exercises?
Green, no.
Okay, let's go ahead and start with that.
Okay.
So I know you know your scales.
Mm-hmm.
So a great way to practice these scales is by using what we call green. And the way it goes, I like to start with my right hand for the first time, and then you can start with your left hands afterwards. But we start on the tonic of any given scale. Go to dominant. Repeat that. So okay, and then we're gonna actually go all the way up to the supertonic. And down to the dominant, and we're gonna repeat that. So all together. And that's where we're at. So let's go ahead and try that.
Okay.
Just real fast. So here we go. On C. 2, ready, and dominant. Here comes the whole thing. To the supertonic. Dominant. Supertonic. Dominant. Good. And then we just follow all the scale back down, and then do the whole thing up and down one more time. So here's where we ended, all the way down, all the way up. And that's the whole thing.
Okay.
Cool. Let's do it. C scale. Ready, go. All the way up. Super, dominant, super, dominant, then down, up, down. Cool. Let's do that on F.
Okay.
Here we go. And ready, and go. Dominant, tonic, dominant, all the way up. Supertonic, dominant, supertonic, dominant, and down, all the way up. Good. And so that is a great exercise to teach yourself how to move around the keyboard. So go ahead and do that on B flat.
Okay.
Real fast. And I just want to watch a couple of things. as always, okay, our primary concern needs to be with motion and sound. And so one of the things I noticed, okay, when we talked a little bit about this when we first started. There's like two major playing zones that are good for us, okay, and we can either do off of center, which gets us a similar sound as edge, or we could do over center, which gets us more of the fundamental sound. So as we're doing these green scales, where we're actually striking the bar is something we really need to consider. Because if we're doing this and playing on edge with some and not, our sound gets very inconsistent. So I want you to do that one more time and just be very aware that, especially after you come off an accidental, sometimes that left hand is pulled just a little further back than it should be. Or if you want to do the center of the bars, that's a viable option too, but you got to get all the way up there for those accidentals.
Okay.
So that's the first comment, and then the second comment I'm going to make to you is just really make sure, especially on those accidentals, that you're drawing the sound out of the keyboard. Just sound a little dark, and of course, push those mouths up.
Okay.
Go ahead and try. Good. Yeah, I think the consistency was much better. Now, again, I want to play you something, and I want you to tell me what you hear.
Okay. The right hand.
Right hand is very much a little overbearing.
Okay.
And again, that was exaggerated from what you're doing, but the tendency is just to squeeze a little bit, and the initial attack just feels very down instead of up. Versus. So let's go ahead and move up to E flat. But again, try and really just think about a little bit less front attack and just really think about pulling those notes right out of the instrument. Balance that left hand, pull it out. Yeah, so right here where you came up, that sounded great. And then just on the way back down, it felt like that left hand started pinching just a little bit again. Right hand sounded much better, but then because it was sounding so good, some of the discrepancies on the left hand really started being a little bit more pronounced. So again, constantly have that feedback loop and be assessing your sound as you're going, because that's what these exercises are really made for. So go ahead and try one more time. Let's see. Let's do A flat.
Okay.
And yeah, just remember, just nice warm tone all the way up and down, and consistent placement of the mouth. That felt a lot more relaxed and open to me. Just be careful when we were getting up to that E flat. I was just reaching a little forward and starting to strike that note. Okay, cool. The only other comment that I have, And I see this quite a bit. Just remember the difference between this and snare drum is that we don't need to start down here. We can start a little bit more lifted, and when we do that, when we start playing some of these patterns that require us to start on the accidentals, you can keep that left-handed mallet out of the way, so that way you're not having to cross over like this. So if we start just a little bit more up, notice how I can just pivot myself out of the way, versus if I let that sort of sink down, I'm trapping myself. So try that one more time, and just try and start with a little bit more lift. And I think you'll see that it makes the motion so much easier, because then you're not crossing anything. Did that feel better? Yeah. So, cool. So for next week, go ahead and work all 12 of those scales using the green exercise.
Oui.
And then the last thing I want to give to you before we start moving on.
Ooh, I get a present.
This is a great book to have. And again, if you don't have it, I can make you copies as you need. But I'd like to start working out of this one just a little bit, because it has a lot of just really, really, really good stuff. So let's go ahead and do some sight reading, because sight reading is also very, very healthy. And let's see. Yeah, we can start building some roll stuff. Okay. Let's go ahead and read. Let's go ahead and just read this. And I kind of just want to observe your process. But again, focus on sound. And as you're reading, right, take it slow enough that you can still produce a good tone, even as you're fighting through the notes. So whenever you're ready. Okay.
Ah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's talk about that just real fast. Well, how did you feel?
Moving my best side reading.
Okay, cool. So that's okay. But one of the things that I think that we can start to work on, and that is really healthy to work on, is that as you're doing this, make sure that you just stick with a pulse, even if the notes are missed every once in a while. But if you can just keep your eyes moving and the time going, that'll help, and you can sort of course correct as you go. That would be one general comment. The second is that we're doing all these scales now, and because of that, as you get more acquainted just with the instrument, you can start recognizing patterns, right? These are all just scalar patterns going up and down, and so the more you can train your eyes to see patterns versus trying to read every individual note, I think that will really help too. Sounded good tone wise. We haven't really talked about rolls yet, but we will. One general comment I have to say is make sure you're still pulling the sound out, okay? Especially when we got to that last F, it just felt really dead. So, thing to consider. Let's go ahead and do that one more time, and maybe just take the first 4 bars.
Okay.
Cool. So just look at that real fast. We go B flat, and then we have another B flat. So. Just be careful you don't accidentally go up to D there.
Oh, right here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There it is. Good. And then the only other comment I would have is he does give you a little hint, but it's okay to sort of double if you want to start with the left. But if I were you, I'd make sure that that B flat is left, so that way when I go C B flat here and then down the keys, I'm leading with the left hand down. Oops. Go ahead and try just one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is something that's just kind of fun that I'd like to start doing just as part of like our quote-unquote warm-ups. It's just to read something, and
Okay.
it goes how it goes, and that's the only way you can learn. Cool. And then just for next time, since you said you had the book?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at this first etude, if you have some spare time.
Okay.
And see if we can just read through it. And just talk about some of the things that this is working for next time.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's all I have for you right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you. Appreciate it.